The smell hit me first. Not perfume, not another man's cologne. Something worse. The sharp scent of industrial cleaner that clung to Claire's work clothes, yes, but beneath it all was the unmistakable odor of fear. My wife was afraid I would discover something, and that fear had a scent all its own. I stood in our bedroom doorway, watching her unpack her gym bag at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. She never went to the gym. We both knew it. "Long day?" I asked. She jumped, hand flying to her chest. "Jesus, Ethan, you scared me." "Sorry, I wasn't." "Inventory run late?" "Yeah." She didn't look at me. Brad and I had to reconcile the cold storage numbers. Took forever. Brad. She'd mentioned him 3 times this week. Before that, maybe twice in 2 years. I walked to my side of the bed and sat down, pulling off my boots. Leather cleaner and polish clung to my hands. Honest smells from an honest day's work. I'd spent 10 hours restoring a pair of vintage Oxfords, losing myself in the rhythm of the craft. Each stitch precise, each cut deliberate. My father taught me that good work requires patience and attention to detail. The same principles applied to marriage, or so I'd thought. "I left dinner in the oven," I said, "probably dried out by now." "I grabbed something at work." She turned away, hiding her face. "I'm exhausted. I'm just going to shower and crash." The bathroom door closed. Water ran. I sat there in the dark, listening to my wife wash away evidence of her betrayal. I'd known for 3 weeks. The first sign was subtle. Claire started password protecting her phone. Then came the late nights, the distant looks, the way she flinched when I touched her. Small things that individually meant nothing but together painted a clear picture. I'm a patient man. My work demands it. You can't rush quality restoration. You study the damage first, understand what you're working with, then make a plan. So I made a plan. The water shut off. Steam drifted from beneath the bathroom door, carrying with it the scent of her lavender body wash. The same body wash I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. Back when things were different. Back when she still smiled at me across the breakfast table and asked about my day and cared about the answer. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. There was a water stain in the corner that had been there since we moved in 6 years ago. I'd always meant to fix it, add it to the list of things I'd failed to take care of. Claire emerged wearing an old t-shirt and pajama pants, her hair wrapped in a towel. She wouldn't look at me as she climbed into bed, turning her back and pulling the covers up to her chin. "Good night," she murmured. I didn't respond. 20 minutes later, her breathing deepened into sleep. I lay there for another hour, watching shadows move across the ceiling, planning my next move. Morning came with autumn rain drumming against the windows. I opened the shop at 7, same as always. The smell of leather and wood polish greeted me like old friends. My sanctuary. 4 walls of order in an increasingly chaotic world. The shop had been my father's before it was mine. He'd taught me everything about the craft, from selecting the right leather to hand-stitching a soul that would last decades. When he died 5 years ago, leaving the business to me felt like inheriting a responsibility and a gift in equal measure. I'd met Claire during my last year of college, back when I was still figuring out whether to take over the shop or pursue something else. She was an accounting major, sharp and ambitious, with plans to climb the corporate ladder. We fell in love fast, the way young people do, thinking passion was enough to carry us through anything. For a while, it was. But somewhere along the way, while I was building my business and she was building her career, we stopped building us. Megan arrived at 7:30, shaking water from her jacket. "Nasty out there," she said, heading straight for the coffee maker. "You look like hell, boss." "Didn't sleep well." She studied me with those sharp green eyes. Megan had worked for me for 3 years, starting as a part-time helper and gradually becoming indispensable. She was 28, smart, efficient, and had a gift for reading people the way I read damaged leather. Want to talk about it? Not yet. Okay. She didn't push. That's what I liked about Megan. She understood boundaries. Mrs. Patterson is coming in at 9 for those boots. I nodded, pulling out the restored Victorian riding boots. The leather gleamed, every scuff erased through hours of work. Transformation. That's what I did, taking broken things and making them whole again. Too bad I couldn't do the same for my marriage. The day dragged on. Between customers, my thoughts drifted to Claire, to Brad, and to the receipt I'd found 2 days ago, tucked in her coat pocket. A hotel restaurant, 2 entrees, a bottle of wine that cost more than our weekly groceries. Mrs. Patterson arrived on time, thrilled with her restored boots. She paid in cash, leaving a generous tip. "You're an artist, Ethan," she said, cradling the boots like treasures. "My grandmother would be so happy to see these looking new again." After she left, Megan brought me a sandwich. "Eat," she said. "You're looking hollow again." "I'm fine." "You're not, but I'll let it slide for now." She sat on the stool across from me. "When are you going to tell me what's really going on?" I took a bite of the sandwich, stalling. Megan deserved to know. She was more than an employee, she was a friend. "Claire's having an affair," I said finally. Megan's eyes widened. "What? Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "How long have you known?" 3 weeks. "And you haven't said anything to her?" "Not yet. I'm gathering evidence first, protecting myself." She was quiet for a moment, processing. "Who's the guy?" "Brad Collins. Works with her at the plant." "And you've seen them together?" "Not yet, but I will tonight." At lunch, I made a call I'd been dreading. "Jack Brennan's office." A crisp female voice answered. "It's Ethan Blake. I need to schedule a consultation." "Regarding?" "Divorce." The word tasted like copper in my mouth. Final. Irrevocable. "I have an opening tomorrow at 3. Does that work?" "Yes." "I'll put you down. Mr. Brennan will need you to bring documentation of assets, any evidence of infidelity, and a list of your concerns going into the consultation." I hung up, feeling like I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I followed my wife. Claire left the meat processing plant at 6:15. I sat in my truck, 3 rows back, engine running, watching her walk to her car. She checked her phone, smiled, and then drove out of the parking lot. I followed at a safe distance. She didn't go home. Instead, she drove downtown to Malone's, a fancy bar I'd never been to. Dark wood, brass fixtures, the kind of place for people with expense accounts and secrets. I parked across the street and waited. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective. People hurried by, heading home to families, to lives that made sense. 10 minutes later, a man walked into Malone's. Tall, confident stride, expensive jacket. Had to be Brad. I stayed for 2 hours, rain starting up again, coffee growing cold, my hands cramped from gripping the steering wheel. When they finally emerged, his hand was on her back, a gesture that used to be mine. They walked to her car, parked in a dark corner. He kissed her deeply, like it wasn't a mistake, like this wasn't new. My hands tightened on the wheel. Every instinct screamed to confront them, to make a scene, to demand answers from her. But that's not who I am. Anger wouldn't change anything. Confronting them without a plan would only leave me at a disadvantage. So I sat there, documenting it all for the lawyer's office tomorrow. When they separated, Brad drove off. Claire sat in her car for 5 minutes, checking her makeup, composing herself before going home to her unsuspecting husband. Except I wasn't unsuspecting anymore. I drove home, poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey, and sat in the dark living room. When Claire came home at 10, I pretended to be asleep. She slipped in beside me, still wearing her lies. Jack Brennan's office smelled like old books and expensive coffee. He was in his 50s, with gray temples and sharp eyes that had seen every type of betrayal. His walls were lined with law books and framed degrees from schools I couldn't afford. "Tell me what's going on," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. I laid it out. The late nights, the distant behavior, the hotel receipt, the kiss I'd witnessed last night. He took notes on a yellow legal pad, his expression neutral. "Have you confronted her?" he asked. "No." "Why not?" "Because I want to do this right." I met his gaze. "I want to protect myself financially and legally before she knows what's coming." He nodded slowly. "Smart. Most people lead with emotion and end up in a worse position. What assets are we talking about?" "The house. Joint savings account, about $45,000. Her retirement account, mine. 2 cars, both paid off. The shop is solely in my name. I inherited it from my father." "Any joint credit cards?" 3. "Cancel them, today, before she racks up debt you'll be responsible for." "Can I do that legally?" "You're an authorized user on joint accounts. Yes, it'll piss her off, but it protects you." He scribbled more notes. "What about the savings account?" "Joint ownership. Don't empty it. That looks bad to a judge. But you can withdraw half and put it in a separate account. That's your money. You earned it." I nodded, taking it all in. This was really happening. I was sitting in a divorce lawyer's office planning the end of my marriage. "Here's what's going to happen," Jack continued. "I'll draft divorce papers. We'll cite irreconcilable differences. No need to prove adultery in this state for a no-fault divorce, but document everything anyway. Texts, receipts, photos. If she fights for more than her share, we use it." "What about the house?" "Marital asset. Gets split or sold. Given the equity, I'd recommend selling. Clean break." He tapped his pen against the pad. "How much do you owe on it?" "About $120,000. It's worth around $250 according to recent comps in the neighborhood. So roughly $65,000 in equity after closing costs and realtor fees. You'd each walk away with about $32,000. The thought of strangers living in the home I'd shared with Claire for 6 years made my stomach turn. But Jack was right. Clean break. "How long does this take?" I asked. "In this state, minimum 90 days after filing. Could be longer if she contests." "She will. Then we prepare for battle." He leaned forward, hands clasped on the desk. "Ethan, I need to ask you something. Are you absolutely sure about this? Once we start the process, things get ugly. Emotions run high. People say and do things they regret. There's no easy way to undo it." I thought about Claire's smile when she checked her phone, about Brad's hand on her back, about the 2 years I'd spent watching my wife slowly disappear into someone I didn't recognize. "I'm sure," I said. "All right then." He pulled out a contract. "My retainer is $5,000. That covers the initial filing and representation through mediation. If it goes to trial, we'll discuss additional costs." I wrote the check, watching my careful savings dwindle for the sake of ending something that had already run its course. I started moving pieces on the board. First, the credit cards. 3 phone calls, each one easier than the last. The customer service representatives didn't care about my reasons. They just needed confirmation that I wanted the accounts closed. "Is there a balance on the account?" the first rep asked. $1,500. "You'll receive a final statement with the amount due. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No, thank you." Account closed. The second card had a balance of $800. The third was maxed out at $5,000. All charges from the past 3 months, restaurants, hotels, a jewelry purchase I'd never seen on her finger. I paid them off in full from my personal account and closed the cards. Better to eliminate the debt now than let her rack up more during the divorce. Next, the bank. I withdrew $22,500, half of what we had. The teller counted it with no judgment, just another transaction. I opened a new account at a bank Claire didn't know about, deposited the money, and requested a new debit card and checks. Third, documentation. I searched through Claire's coat pockets, her car, her desk at home. More receipts. A birthday card signed, "Love Always Be." A bottle of perfume I'd never seen her wear, tucked in the back of her underwear drawer. A second phone hidden in a shoebox on the top shelf of her closet, password protected but confirming my suspicions. I photographed everything, backed up the photos to 3 different cloud services, and returned everything to its original spot. At night, I lay beside my wife and felt nothing. The love I'd once had for her had hardened into something cold. Not hate. Hate requires passion. This was just empty. She noticed the credit cards first. 3 days after I closed them, she came home, agitated, slamming her purse on the counter. "Ethan, my card was declined at lunch today." She stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, face flushed with irritation. "I called the company. They said the account was closed." "I closed it." She blinked. "What?" "I closed all 3 cards. We don't need that kind of debt." "You can't just make decisions like that without talking to me." "I did talk to you, 3 months ago. You said we should cut back on spending, get our finances under control. So I did." It was technically true. She had said that, back when she still pretended to care about our joint future. "That's not what I meant, and you know it." Her voice rose. "You can't control everything, Ethan. We're supposed to be partners." Partners. I let the word hang there. "When was the last time we acted like partners, Claire?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've been distant for months. You come home late, you're always tired, you barely talk to me anymore. So I'm handling our finances because someone needs to." She stared at me, and I could see the calculations behind her eyes. Push back or let it go? She needed to buy something at that lunch, probably with Brad, and my canceling the cards had humiliated her. "Fine," she said finally. "Whatever. I have to go. Working late again tonight." "Say hi to Brad for me." She froze. "What?" "You said you're working late. Brad usually works late too, right? Just tell him I said hi." The color drained from her face. "You're being weird, Ethan." "Am I?" "Yeah, you are. This whole thing with the credit cards. Now this. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just tired of being taken for granted." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I don't have time for whatever mood you're in. I'll be home by 10. I won't wait up." The door closed behind her. I stood in the empty kitchen, listening to her car start and pull away. Then I called Jack. "The papers are ready," he said. "Want to come by tomorrow to review them?" "Yes." 3 o'clock work? "I'll be there." Megan found me in the back room at lunch the next day, eating a sandwich I couldn't taste. "Okay, Spill," she said, pulling up a stool. "You've been walking around like a ghost for 2 weeks. What's going on?" I told her. Everything. The affair, the lawyer, the plan. She listened without interrupting, her face carefully neutral. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, just staring at her hands. "How are you so calm about this?" she finally asked. "What's the alternative? Scream? Cry? Break things?" I shook my head. "That doesn't fix anything." "It might make you feel better." I doubt it. And it would definitely make everything worse legally. She studied me with those sharp eyes. "You know what I think? I think you're angrier than you're letting on. You're just burying it under all this control." Maybe she was right. But anger was messy. Anger made you stupid. And I needed to be smart right now. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About the affair? 3 weeks? That something was wrong? About 6 months? And you never said anything to me. What was there to say? My marriage is falling apart? You would have just felt bad for me." "I do feel bad for you, you idiot." She punched my arm lightly. "You're my friend. This sucks." "Yeah, it does." "What happens next?" "Jack files the papers next week. Claire gets served at work. Then it gets ugly." "You need anything from me?" "Just keep showing up. Keep things normal here. This shop is the only thing that still makes sense." She nodded. You got it, boss. The afternoon passed in a blur of routine work. A businessman brought in expensive Italian loafers that needed resoling. A woman wanted her mother's vintage purse restored. A college kid needed his work boots waterproofed. Normal people with normal problems. Their shoes wore out. I fixed them. Simple transactions built on clear expectations, not like marriage, where the expectations shifted without warning and the foundation crumbled beneath your feet. At 3, I drove to Jack's office. He had the papers ready, neatly organized in a folder. Petition for dissolution of marriage, asset division worksheets, proposed settlement agreements. Read through everything, he said. Make sure it's accurate. I did, line by line. It was strange seeing my life reduced to legal terminology, petitioner and respondent instead of husband and wife, marital assets instead of the things we'd built together, irreconcilable differences instead of betrayal. This looks right, I said finally. Good. I'll file tomorrow. The court will issue a summons and Claire will be served within 5 business days. At work? Usually, yes. A process server will hand-deliver it. I imagined Claire's face when some stranger walked up to her desk and handed her divorce papers in front of her colleagues. Part of me felt guilty. Most of me didn't care. There's something else I want to discuss, I said. What's that? Claire works at a meat processing plant. She's been having this affair with a coworker. I'm sure that violates some kind of workplace conduct policy. Jack's expression didn't change. It might. What are you thinking? I'm thinking someone should let HR know. Anonymous tip. Let them investigate. That's not illegal, Jack said carefully. But it is aggressive. It could cost her her job. She should have thought about that before sleeping with a coworker. He leaned back, studying me. I need to ask you something, Ethan. Are you doing this because you want justice or because you want revenge? Does it matter? It matters to your own peace of mind. Revenge doesn't heal anything. It just prolongs the pain. Then call it consequences. She made choices. Now she lives with them. Jack nodded slowly. All right, but be careful. The angrier you get, the more mistakes you make, and mistakes in divorce proceedings can cost you. I'm not angry. I'm just done. I called the plant's HR department from a burner phone 2 days later. Human Resources, this is Jennifer speaking. I'd like to report a violation of your workplace conduct policy, I said, keeping my voice neutral and professional. What kind of violation? 2 employees are having an intimate relationship. I believe it's creating a hostile work environment and possibly affecting their professional judgment. There was a pause, the sound of typing. Can you provide names? Claire Blake and Brad Collins. They both work in accounting. And what evidence do you have of this relationship? They've been seen leaving together after hours, meeting at hotels during lunch breaks. There's concern they might be misusing company time and resources for personal matters. I see. And you are? I'd prefer to remain anonymous, but I suggest you check security footage from the parking lot. Check their clock-in and clock-out times. Look at any overlapping business trips or expense reports. You'll find what you need. We take all complaints seriously, but anonymous reports are difficult to investigate without corroboration. Then corroborate it. Do your job. Because if you don't, and this becomes a lawsuit or public scandal, you'll wish you had. I hung up before she could respond. Was it petty? Maybe. But Claire had humiliated me, treating our marriage like it meant nothing. Now she'd understand what that felt like. 3 days later, Megan came into the shop with news. You hear about the thing at the processing plant? She asked, too casually while organizing the receipt drawer. What thing? My cousin works there in packaging. Says HR is investigating some kind of workplace relationship. Got everyone nervous. I kept my expression neutral, focused on the shoe I was dyeing. That so? Yeah, apparently 2 people in accounting might lose their jobs over it. They pulled them both in for questioning yesterday. She watched me carefully. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Why would I? Because you've got that look. That scary, calm look you get when you're 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I set down my brush. If someone's violating workplace policy, that's between them and their employer. Ethan. What? Just be careful. I get that you're hurt. I get that she deserves consequences, but don't become someone you're not. I'm exactly who I've always been. I'm just not being a doormat anymore. She didn't push it further, but I could feel her watching me throughout the day, concern etched in the lines around her eyes. The process server found Claire at work on Thursday afternoon. I wasn't there, but I could imagine it. Her sitting at her desk, probably texting Brad, when a stranger walked up and handed her an envelope. Claire Blake, you've been served. Every head in the office turning, the walk of shame back to her desk, opening the envelope with shaking hands, reading words like dissolution and irreconcilable differences and asset division, realizing her husband knew everything. She called me 17 times that afternoon. I didn't answer. She showed up at the shop at closing time, bursting through the door with tear-stained cheeks and rage in her eyes. What the hell is this? She waved the papers at me. Megan looked up from the register, eyes wide. Megan, can you give us a minute? I asked. You sure? Yeah. She grabbed her coat and left, throwing a worried glance over her shoulder. I turned to Claire. Those are divorce papers. I thought that was obvious. You can't just ambush me like this. We haven't even talked about it. What's there to talk about? You're having an affair. I want a divorce. Pretty straightforward. How did you find out? Her voice cracked. Does it matter? Yes. Did someone tell you? Did you spy on me? I saw you with him. 2 weeks ago, outside Malone's. He kissed you like he owned you, and you let him. She sank into the customer chair, all the fight draining out of her. Ethan, I can explain. Don't. I held up a hand. I don't want to hear it. I don't want your excuses or your justifications or your promises that it didn't mean anything. I just want out. It was a mistake, she whispered. A stupid mistake. It doesn't have to end our marriage. It already has. You ended it when you decided to sleep with someone else. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want you to do anything. I want you to sign the papers and let us both move on. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. When did you become so cold? When I realized the woman I married didn't exist anymore. That's not fair. No, it's not. None of this is fair. But it's happening anyway. She stood up, clutching the papers to her chest. I'm not signing anything. You want a divorce? You're going to have to fight for it. Fine. We'll fight. She walked to the door, then turned back. You know what the worst part is? You gave up on us without even trying. No, Claire. You gave up on us when you started the affair. I'm just acknowledging reality. She left, door slamming behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there in my empty shop, surrounded by the tools of my trade, feeling absolutely nothing. The next 2 weeks were a special kind of hell. Claire refused to move out. She took the guest bedroom, turning our home into a battlefield of silence and petty sabotage. My coffee mug disappeared, found it in the trash. My work shirts came back from the laundry wrinkled, stained with something that looked like bleach. The thermostat stayed at 58 degrees no matter how many times I adjusted it. She cooked elaborate dinners, eating them alone in the dining room, the smell taunting me. Look what you're missing. I didn't retaliate. I just documented everything. But the real battle was at her job. On Tuesday of the second week, Claire came home early, her face blotchy from crying. They suspended me, she said, dropping her purse on the counter. I was making dinner. Pasta. Simple. Suspended you from what? Work. Pending investigation. She glared at me with red-rimmed eyes. Someone reported me and Brad to HR. They pulled us in separately, asked about our relationship, showed us footage of us leaving together. Time-stamped evidence of overlapping clockouts. They know everything. Maybe you should have been more careful. This was you. She stepped closer, voice rising. You did this. You called them. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar! She shoved my chest. You're destroying my life. I set down the spoon, keeping my voice calm. I'm not destroying anything. You did this to yourself. You had an affair with a coworker. That's against company policy. Consequences were inevitable. My career is over. They're going to fire me. I'll never get another job in this industry. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with Brad. I hate you, she spat. I hate what you've become. You mean someone with self-respect? Someone who doesn't let himself be walked all over? She swung at me. I caught her wrist easily, just firmly enough to stop it. Don't, I said quietly. She jerked away, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. You're not the man I married. He was kind, he was gentle. He would never hurt me like this. He was also faithful, and he trusted his wife. I met her eyes. You destroyed that man, Claire. What's left is what you made. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the man she married had died the night I watched her kiss another man. I'm moving out, she said finally. I can't stay here with you. You're not human anymore. That's probably smart. I'll get my own lawyer, a real one, and I'll take you for everything you've got. Try it. See how that works out for you. She left that night, stuffing clothes into suitcases while I sat in the living room pretending to read. When the door closed behind her, the house felt bigger, emptier, but not lonely. Lonely would have meant I missed her. Claire hired Mitchell Gray, a lawyer known for aggressive tactics and expensive suits. He sent Jack a letter demanding 60% of all marital assets, citing Claire's emotional distress and financial hardship due to my alleged harassment. He's posturing, Jack said when we met. This is standard. He throws out a ridiculous number hoping we'll meet in the middle. I'm not compromising. Good, because we have leverage he doesn't know about yet. The affair? The affair. The documented evidence. The fact that she was spending marital assets on her relationship with Brad. He tapped the folder on his desk. I've been reviewing your bank statements. In the last 6 months, Claire withdrew or charged over $8,000 beyond her usual spending. Hotels, restaurants, that jewelry purchase. A judge won't look kindly on marital waste. So what happens now? We go to mediation. Both sides present their case, try to settle without going to trial. And if we can't? Then we go to trial, but that takes longer and costs more. Most cases settle in mediation. The mediation was set for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, Claire's situation at work got worse. Megan's cousin reported that both Claire and Brad had been officially terminated after the HR investigation. Something about falsifying time cards and misuse of company resources in addition to the affair. Claire had been making $38 an hour. With benefits and bonuses, she was pulling in around $70,000 a year. Now, she had nothing. Part of me felt guilty, a small part. The rest of me remembered her face when she kissed Brad, the lies she told me night after night, and her complete lack of remorse until the consequences hit. I ran into Brad at the grocery store on a rainy Saturday morning. He was in the produce section, looking tired and defeated, aging him by 10 years. When he saw me, he froze, apple in hand. Ethan. Brad. We stood there for a moment, two men who'd never officially met, but who knew everything about each other. Look, he started, I just want to say, don't. I kept my voice level and cold. I don't want your apology. I don't want your explanation. I just want you to understand something. He waited, shoulders tense. You didn't win, I said. Claire's not some prize you earned. She's a woman who destroyed her marriage and her career for something that meant nothing. You were convenient, that's all. And now you're both paying for it. It wasn't like that, he said weakly. It doesn't matter what it was like. It's over. She's moved on. Last I heard, she's already seeing someone new, some guy from a bar. You're already forgotten. That hit him. I could see it in the way his face crumpled, the way his hand tightened on the apple. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. But you did it anyway. That's the thing about consequences, Brad. Intent doesn't matter, actions do. I grabbed my basket and walked past him. Stay away from me. Stay away from my shop. We're done here. I didn't look back as I continued shopping, picking up items I needed with mechanical precision. The mediation took place in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and crushed dreams. Claire sat on one side of the table with Mitchell Gray. I sat on the other with Jack. A stern mediator, Patricia Chen, sat at the head. Claire looked different, thinner, with shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't conceal. She wouldn't look at me. Let's begin, Patricia said. We're here to try to reach an equitable settlement in the dissolution of marriage between Ethan Blake and Claire Blake. Mr. Gray, would you like to start? Mitchell launched into a speech about Claire's sacrifices, her contributions to the household, and her current financial distress. My client has been left unemployed due to actions taken by Mr. Blake, he said smoothly. She's had to move in with her sister. She's struggling to meet basic needs. Meanwhile, Mr. Blake continues to operate his business and maintain financial stability. We believe a 60-40 split of assets in her favor is justified. Jack didn't hesitate. Your client was terminated due to her own violations of workplace policy. Mr. Blake had nothing to do with that. As for sacrifices, let's talk about those. He slid documents across the table. These are bank statements showing over $8,000 in unauthorized expenditures by Mrs. Blake over the past 6 months, hotels, restaurants, jewelry, all tied to her extramarital affair with Brad Collins, a coworker at the meat processing plant. Claire's face went pale. Mitchell whispered in her ear. Furthermore, Jack continued, we have documented evidence of the affair itself, security footage, witness statements, and text messages obtained through legal discovery. Mrs. Blake wasn't having a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a deliberate pattern of deception and marital waste. Patricia made notes. Mrs. Blake, do you dispute these allegations? Claire's voice was small. No. Mr. Gray? Mitchell shuffled his papers. My client's personal choices, while regrettable, don't negate her right to equitable distribution of marital assets. Agreed, Jack said, which is why we're proposing a 50-50 split. The house gets sold, proceeds divided equally. Savings split equally. Each party keeps their own retirement accounts and vehicles. Mr. Blake keeps his inherited business, as it was never a marital asset. That's unacceptable, Mitchell said. My client contributed to that business through her emotional support and... She worked full-time in a separate career, Jack interrupted. She had no involvement in the day-to-day operations of the shop. She never worked there, never contributed financially to its maintenance or growth. It's a pre-marital inheritance, not on the table. Patricia looked at Claire. Did you contribute to the shoe repair business in any way? I supported Ethan emotionally while he built it, Claire said. That's not a legal contribution, Patricia replied. Inherited businesses remain separate property unless the spouse can demonstrate significant financial or operational contribution. Do you have evidence of such contribution? Claire looked at Mitchell. He shook his head slightly. No, she admitted. Then the business remains Mr. Blake's separate property. Patricia turned to me. Mr. Blake, are you amenable to a 50-50 split of all marital assets? Yes. Mrs. Blake? Claire looked at Mitchell. They whispered back and forth for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. My client agrees, Mitchell said, with one condition. She wants the house. The house gets sold, I said flatly. My client has an emotional attachment to... I don't care, I interrupted. Neither of us can afford to buy out the other's share. It gets sold. That's final. Patricia looked between us. Mr. Blake is correct. Given the equity and current financial situations, a sale is the most practical option. Mrs. Blake, I understand you have emotional ties to the property, but emotion doesn't trump financial reality. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. All right, Patricia said. Let's work through the details. It took 3 hours to finalize everything. The house would be listed within 30 days. We'd split closing costs and realtor fees. Proceeds would be divided 50-50. Joint savings account split immediately. We'd each keep our own cars, retirement accounts, and personal possessions. What about the wedding rings? Mitchell asked. I don't care about the ring, I said. She can keep it or throw it away. Mr. Blake's ring? Patricia asked. I'd taken it off weeks ago. It sat in a drawer at the shop, no longer fitting the man I'd become. I'll keep it. Family heirloom. Agreed, Claire said quietly. By the time we signed the mediation agreement, it was after 7. The sun had set, leaving the office in shadow. Claire stood up, gathering her papers. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to say something, but Mitchell put a hand on her shoulder and guided her toward the door. I watched her leave, feeling nothing but relief. That went well, Jack said. Better than expected, actually. When is it final? We'll file the agreement with the court. The judge will review it. Assuming no issues, you'll be officially divorced in about 60 days. Good. Jack studied me. How are you doing with all this? Fine. Most people aren't this calm during their divorce. Most people didn't spend months preparing for it. I stood up, stretching muscles cramped from sitting. I'll see you when the papers are ready. I drove back to the shop, back to the apartment above it that had become my refuge. Small, simple, mine. Tomorrow, I'd open at 7, work on the briefcase and spectator shoes, talk to customers about their damaged leather goods. Life would go on, just different. The house sold in 3 weeks. A young couple bought it, newlyweds excited about their first home. They walked through, talking about painting the walls and planting a garden, full of hope and dreams. I didn't tell them that dreams could die in that house. Claire and I met at the closing, sitting on opposite sides of the title company's conference room. We didn't speak except to sign papers, page after page after page, ending with the final transfer of ownership. We each walked away with $62,000. She left first, check clutched in her hand like a life preserver. I stood in the parking lot for a moment, looking at the check that represented the dissolution of 6 years of marriage. It felt anticlimactic. All that pain, all that betrayal, reduced to a number on a piece of paper. The divorce finalized 2 weeks later. Judge Sandra Morrison reviewed our agreement, asked if we both understood and accepted the terms, then signed the decree. This marriage is hereby dissolved, she said, striking her gavel once. Good luck to both of you. Claire stood up immediately, not looking at me, but as she reached the courtroom door, she turned back. I hope you're happy, she said, her voice carrying across the empty room. I met her gaze steadily. I'm not happy, but I'm free. That's enough. Something flickered across her face. Regret? Anger? Sadness? I couldn't tell any more. Didn't want to. She left without another word. Jack clapped me on the shoulder. It's done. You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Most people are more emotional at this point. I did my grieving months ago. This is just paperwork. We walked out of the courthouse together. The sun was shining, birds singing, the world continuing its indifferent rotation. What now? Jack asked. Now I go back to work, live my life, move forward. You should take some time, process everything, maybe talk to someone. I'm fine. He didn't look convinced, but didn't push. Call me if you need anything. I drove back to the shop, back to the familiar smells of leather and polish, back to work that made sense. Megan was restoring a vintage saddle when I walked in. How'd it go? She asked. It's done, final. How do you feel? Empty. But okay. She set down her tools and hugged me. I stood there awkwardly for a moment, then hugged her back. "You're going to be all right," she said. "It'll take time, but you'll be all right." Maybe she was right. Life settled into a new rhythm. I threw myself into work, taking on more complex restoration projects, a 19th century cavalry saddle, a set of luggage from the 1920s, projects that required complete focus, leaving no room for thoughts of Claire or betrayal or broken vows. Customers came and went. Their shoes wore out. I fixed them. Simple transactions built on clear expectations and honest work. Megan kept the shop running smoothly, handling the front while I worked in the back. She didn't ask about my personal life anymore. Just brought me coffee and made sure I ate lunch and occasionally dragged me out for a beer after work. "You need to socialize," she'd say. "You're becoming a hermit." I like being a hermit. "No, you don't. You're just scared of getting hurt again." Maybe. Probably. But fear was a reasonable response to having your trust shattered. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I ran into Claire at the grocery store again. She looked better. The shadows under her eyes had faded. She'd gained back some weight. Her hair was styled differently, shorter and lighter. We saw each other across the produce section. For a moment, I thought about turning around and leaving, but I didn't. I walked over, shopping basket in hand. "Claire." "Ethan." She looked nervous, fingers fidgeting with her shopping list. "How are you?" "Good. You?" "Better. I got a new job. Accounting firm downtown. Pays less than the plant, but it's steady." "That's good." Awkward silence stretched between us. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "For everything. For the affair, for the lies, for how I treated you. You deserved better." "Yes, I did. I know you probably hate me." "I don't hate you. I don't feel anything for you at all anymore." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's worse, isn't it? Being nothing to you?" "It is what it is. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me." "You did. Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Maybe," I said finally. "Someday. When enough time has passed and it doesn't matter anymore, but not now, and probably not for a long time." She nodded, eyes glistening. "Fair enough." "What happened with Brad?" I asked. "We tried dating after everything fell apart. Lasted about 2 months. Turns out we didn't actually like each other. We just liked the excitement of sneaking around. That's usually how it works. He's engaged now, to someone he met at a bar. They're getting married in the spring. Good for him." Another silence. "I should go," Claire said. "It was good seeing you. Or not good, but you know what I mean." "Yeah. Take care of yourself, Claire. You too." I watched her walk away, shoulders hunched, pushing her cart toward the checkout. A woman who'd made choices and lived with the consequences. I felt sorry for her, but I didn't feel anything else. A year after the divorce, Megan convinced me to go on a date. "Her name is Sarah," she said, showing me a picture on her phone. "She's a friend from my yoga class, graphic designer. Divorced, no kids, nice person. I'm not ready. You'll never be ready if you don't try. 1 coffee. That's all I'm asking." I agreed mostly to get Megan off my back. Sarah was nice, pretty, easy to talk to. We met at a cafe downtown, ordered overpriced lattes, made small talk about work and hobbies and books we'd read. She was exactly the kind of person I should be interested in, but I felt nothing. "I can tell you're not into this," she said after an hour. "It's okay. Megan warned me you were recently divorced." "It's been a year. Divorce doesn't follow a timeline. My ex cheated on me. Took me 3 years before I could trust anyone again." She smiled sympathetically. "You'll get there. Just give yourself time." We parted as friends, her kindness making me feel worse about the whole thing. That night, sitting in my apartment above the shop, I realized something. I didn't want to date. Didn't want to trust someone new, didn't want to risk getting hurt again. Claire hadn't just broken my heart. She'd broken something fundamental in how I viewed relationships. The belief that commitment meant something, that vows were sacred, that love was enough. I'd spent 34 years believing in those things, and 6 months watching them all crumble. Maybe I'd heal eventually. Maybe I'd learn to trust again, but maybe I wouldn't. And maybe that was okay. 2 years after the divorce, Claire showed up at the shop. It was a cold November evening, 20 minutes before closing. I was conditioning a leather jacket when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, expecting a last-minute customer. It was her. She looked different again, more mature, professional. She wore a business suit and carried a leather portfolio case. "We're closing soon," I said. "I know." I saw Megan leave. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "I was hoping we could talk." "About what?" "About us, about what happened. I need closure, Ethan." I set down the jacket. "It's been 2 years, Claire. We have closure. It's called a divorce decree. Please, just give me 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I nodded. "Fine. 5 minutes." She set her portfolio on the counter, hands shaking slightly. "I've been going to therapy, working through everything. My therapist suggested I try to make amends with the people I've hurt." "This is a 12-step thing?" "Something like that." She took a deep breath. "I wanted to tell you that I understand now what I did to you. Not just the affair, but the lying, the gaslighting, making you doubt your own instincts. I was cruel in ways I didn't even recognize at the time. Okay. And I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not the defensive half-apology I gave during the divorce. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm sorry I betrayed you. I'm sorry I wasted years of your life. I'm sorry I took something good and destroyed it because I was selfish and stupid." I leaned against the workbench. "Is that what you needed to say?" "I also wanted you to know that what you did, calling HR, the divorce, all of it, was justified. At the time I thought you were being vindictive. But you were just protecting yourself, setting boundaries. I don't blame you anymore." "I appreciate that." "Do you hate me?" "No, I told you before. I don't feel anything for you." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "My therapist said you might say that. She said it's common for people who've been betrayed to just shut down emotionally toward their ex." "Your therapist sounds smart." "She is." Claire smiled slightly. "She also said I need to forgive myself. But I can't do that until I know you're okay. Are you okay, Ethan?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yeah," I said finally. "I'm okay. I'm not the same person I was when we were married. I'm more guarded, more cautious. But I'm okay." "Are you seeing anyone?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't trust anyone enough to let them close." She flinched. "I did that to you." "Yeah, you did. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix it, Claire. It just is what it is." She stood there for a long moment, tears running down her face, before finally nodding. "Okay. Thank you for listening. I'll leave you alone now." She turned toward the door. "Claire," I called. She stopped, looking back. "I hope you find happiness, real happiness, the kind that doesn't come from hurting other people. I hope you find it too." She left, door closing softly behind her. I stood alone in my shop, surrounded by the tools of my trade and the smell of leather, feeling the weight of closure settle over me like a blanket. It wasn't satisfying. It wasn't healing. It just was. 3 years after the divorce, I finally felt like myself again. Not the man I was before Claire's betrayal. That man was gone, buried somewhere in the ruins of a failed marriage. But a new version, harder, wiser, more careful with trust, but no longer drowning in bitterness. The shop was thriving. I'd hired another technician, a kid fresh out of trade school named Tommy who had real talent with leather. Megan had been promoted to shop manager, handling all the business operations while I focused on restoration work. I'd started teaching a weekend workshop on leather repair at the community college. Found satisfaction in passing on skills my father had taught me. The cycle continuing. I'd even gone on a few dates. Nothing serious. Coffee meetups that sometimes turned into second dates, occasionally third dates, but never anything more. I wasn't ready for more. Might never be ready. But I wasn't hiding anymore either. One Saturday afternoon, while teaching my class, I noticed a woman in the back row. She asked insightful questions about leather treatments and hand-stitching techniques. After class, she approached my workstation. "That was fascinating," she said. "I restore antique furniture. Never thought about applying similar techniques to leather." "Lots of crossover between the trades," I said. "Patience, attention to detail, respect for the materials. I'm Jennifer, by the way." "Ethan." We talked for 20 minutes about restoration philosophy, about taking broken things and giving them new life, about the satisfaction of good work done well. When she left, she handed me a business card. "If you ever want to grab coffee and talk shop, give me a call." I put the card in my wallet, unsure if I'd ever use it, but I didn't throw it away either. That was progress. That evening, I sat in my apartment above the shop, reflecting on how the world had moved on from my failed marriage. Claire was living her life, probably with Brad. The scars from the past were still there, but they were proof of survival. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Drinks tomorrow night? You need to get out more." I smiled and agreed. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough. 4 years after the divorce, I called Jennifer. We had casual, easy dates, coffee, dinner, and a gallery opening. We avoided discussing the past and focused on work, art, and simple pleasures. After our 5th date, she invited me to her workshop, where she worked on restoring old furniture. She explained how some damage could be beautiful if you knew how to preserve it. Her words resonated with me. Maybe damage could be a sign of strength. We kissed for the first time that night, surrounded by broken furniture, and it felt right, like stepping into something new with open eyes.